multi-billion-dollar boardroom, frosted glass walls, polished mahogany table, 3 investment firms, one signature away from a $200 million deal. Everyone in suits, everyone talking numbers, except one woman, holding a tray with 2 cups of coffee, her hands trembling slightly. Her name is Maeve Carter. No one in the room knows that name. She's not on the email thread. She's not on the guest list. She's the janitor who got asked last minute to serve drinks because she was already there anyway. She doesn't speak. She doesn't interrupt. She simply walks in, places the tray, steps back. But right before she turns to leave, she hears something. A sentence. 4 words. Quiet. Almost whispered. They'll never check page 19. Maeve freezes. Her eyes flick to the open folder on the table. Page 19, it's already clipped behind the signature sheet. The investor chuckles. The CEO doesn't. Maeve stands still for a moment too long. One of the lawyers shoots her a look, the kind that says, "You're in the wrong room, sweetheart." She nods, turns, and walks toward the door. But her heart? It's sprinting. She's cleaned these rooms for 11 years. She's never been part of a meeting. And today she wasn't supposed to be, but now she knows something. Something she shouldn't. Then, her foot clips the edge of the rug. The tray tips, a cup lifts into the air, and the second it spins, everyone turns. Coffee arcs through the air like it's in slow motion and lands directly on the open contract. $200 million soaked in caramel roast. Gasps. Silence. Eyes wide. And Maeve? She's frozen. Humiliated. Terrified. But then the CEO doesn't shout, doesn't fire her. He steps forward, looks down at the ruined page, and does something no one expected. Maeve Carter didn't ask for this. She was supposed to be off the clock. Done by 6:30, home by 7:15 before her daughter would call from her aunt's house asking if she'd remembered to pack the purple lunchbox. But instead, a manager with too much perfume and too little empathy leaned into the janitor's closet and said, "Can you be a team player and bring the coffee in? You're already on the floor." Maeve blinked. She was wearing gloves, holding a mop, and still she nodded. Because of course she did. That's what women like Maeve do when they need to keep their job and health insurance and dignity all at the same time. You say yes, you smile, you keep moving. So now here she was, still in her gray uniform, stepping into a conference room where every chair cost more than her monthly rent, holding a tray she wiped down 3 times just to be sure. Her fingers clenched the edge of it like it might run away. On that tray, 2 white ceramic cups filled with Kenyan Reserve coffee she wasn't allowed to drink. She placed the tray down silently, just like she was told. Didn't look anyone in the eye, didn't interrupt, just did what they asked. That's when she heard it. They'll never check page 19. Soft. Smug. Too confident. She shouldn't have reacted, but her body did it before her brain could catch up. Her head tilted just slightly. One of the men saw it. A flash of annoyance, like a mosquito had buzzed in, like she had dared to exist too loud. Maeve's stomach knotted. She turned, started walking. And then, the rug. Her foot caught. The tray jerked, and the coffee, hot, fragrant, dark, flew. 1 cup smashed on the corner of the table. The other landed like a missile right onto the contract. Not a drip, not a splash, a soak. The entire page now smeared, warped, unreadable. Time didn't slow down. It stopped. One investor whispered, "You've got to be kidding me." Another one just stared at his watch, like maybe if he didn't look at her, she'd disappear. And Maeve, her throat dried up. Her hands shook. Her face flushed. She rushed to grab napkins. Apologized over and over. "I'm so sorry. I slipped. I didn't mean. Please." No one responded. They weren't mad. They were worse. They were silent. And then a woman in a slim gray suit stepped forward. Director of Operations. Name tag said Whitney. Whitney's voice was smooth, but it sliced like glass. "Maeve, thank you. I think we've got it from here." "No, please, I'll clean this." "No. Thank you. Please step outside." Maeve stood frozen. Now. And so she left, holding broken ceramic in one hand and whatever was left of her pride in the other. Outside in the hallway, Whitney followed. No one else did. Door clicked shut behind them. Whitney smiled a tight, condescending smile, the kind people in power practice in the mirror. I know you meant well, but this was a critical moment, and frankly, you're not trained for this kind of environment. Maeve stared at her. It was coffee, I tripped, and this is a $200 million negotiation. Then why ask me to serve in the first place? Because you were already in the building. But that doesn't mean you belong in the room. Maeve blinked. For a second, her face didn't change. Then her mouth curled just slightly. Not a smile, more like something bitter refusing to be swallowed. I'm sorry, I'll leave. And she did. She walked away. But what no one saw was that she didn't leave the building. She stopped in the janitor's closet, sat down on the stool she always used to rest her legs, and pulled out a napkin from her pocket. On it, she scribbled something with a red pen she stole from the sign-in desk last year. It was one line, one sentence. Then she folded it, stood up, and walked back toward the conference room. Back inside the conference room, the air was stale with awkwardness. A new copy of the contract had been printed. The coffee-stained original lay off to the side like a corpse no one wanted to look at. Small talk floated in the air like perfume. Fake, rehearsed, meant to distract. Whitney had re-entered with a tight smile and a fresh pot of coffee. Maeve was gone, supposedly. But then, the door opened. Every head turned. Maeve walked back in, not with a mop, not with a tray, but with a folded napkin in one hand and a look on her face that said, I'm not cleaning up anything but the truth. Whitney stood up immediately. Maeve, I won't stay long. Her voice didn't shake this time. The CEO, Mr. Leland Cross, watched from the head of the table. He didn't say a word. His hands were folded, his eyes sharp, focused, like he'd been waiting to see what would happen next. Maeve stepped to the table. Slowly, deliberately, she placed the folded napkin down right next to the new contract and said just one sentence. You might want to check page 19 this time. No theatrics, no explanation, just that. And then she turned to leave, but a voice cut through the tension. Wait. It was Cross. Maeve stopped mid-step. He reached forward and unfolded the napkin. One sentence, written in red ink. The clause is buried in subsection B. It triples their equity after year one. The room fell silent. An investor named Blake, silver tie, smug eyes, blinked twice. That's not in the final draft. The CEO picked up the new contract, flipped to page 19. Everyone leaned in, and there it was. Subsection B, buried beneath generic language. A clause that would have handed majority control to the investment group after year one. Not now, not at signing, but when no one was watching. Whitney's face drained of color. It must be a misunderstanding, maybe the legal team. But Cross didn't look at her. He looked at Maeve. How did you know that? Maeve didn't answer immediately. Her voice was quiet when it came. Because I've cleaned this room for 11 years, I've read every scrap of paper people leave behind, every scribbled note, every tossed draft. Y'all talk like no one's listening. You forget I'm even here. No one moved. So when I heard them say, they'll never check page 19, I remembered a version I saw last week, crumpled near the trash. It had that same clause. I wasn't supposed to see it, I wasn't supposed to know, but I did. The investors looked like someone had punched them without touching their bodies. Cross leaned back slowly in his chair. The napkin still sat in the center of the table like a detonated grenade, silent but devastating. Maeve turned to leave again. I'm sorry I spilled the coffee, she said quietly, but I'm not sorry it stopped the deal. No one stopped her this time. Out in the hallway, her knees went weak. She exhaled hard, not because she was proud, but because she was scared, terrified. Because in rooms like that, truth doesn't always matter. Power does, and she had just embarrassed power in front of itself. She kept walking, toward the elevator, toward the exit, toward the consequences. The door didn't close all the way behind her. Maeve had almost reached the elevator when she heard it. Heavy footsteps on that glass-polished floor, followed by the smooth but cold voice of Whitney, slicing through the silence like it always did. Mr. Cross, I'll have security remove her from the building. Then a pause, and a different voice. Deeper, slower. Waited. No, everyone else. Leave the room. Silence. Everyone. That includes you, Whitney. Maeve froze. What? She heard the shuffle of chairs, a murmured, "This is insane." The hum of awkward exits. Then, footsteps approaching. A soft chime as the conference room door opened behind her. Ms. Carter? Maeve turned. Leland Cross, the CEO, the man whose name hung on 3 patents and a downtown building, was standing at the threshold, his suit crisp, his expression unreadable. Come back inside, please. Maeve should have said no. Everything in her body screamed, run! She had just embarrassed a billion-dollar room. She had spilled coffee on a deal, literally. She had spoken out of place, without permission, without rank. But something in his voice. Not anger, not threat, just something slower. Older. She stepped back in. The room was empty now, just her and him. The long table stretched between them like a bridge in a battlefield. Cross gestured to a seat. She stayed standing. He nodded, almost like he expected that. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then he said, "You could have just walked away." Maeve met his eyes. I did. Then I came back. You embarrassed some very powerful people today. They were hiding something. And you spilled coffee on it. Maeve didn't flinch. Accidents happen. He gave a short, dry laugh. Not mocking, and more like he couldn't believe the situation he was in. How long have you worked here? 11 years. 3rd shift. 6 floors. Why didn't anyone know you could read legal language like that? Maeve paused. Because nobody ever asked what I could read. That hit. Not loudly, but it landed. Cross looked at the contract again. The red ink still soaked into the napkin. The truth written like an afterthought. Because it had to be. Then he did something strange. He walked to the head of the table, sat down, and pushed a legal pad toward her. Write it down. Maeve frowned. What? What else you've seen? What else you've heard? I'm not a spy. No, but you've been listening. She didn't move. You don't need to give names, just patterns. Things that didn't sit right. Maeve slowly stepped forward, sat down, picked up the pen. Her hands shook. Not from fear, from release. Because for 11 years she'd watched interns become managers, managers become directors, directors become liars. And no one saw her watching. But now someone had. She started writing. Across the hall, Whitney was pacing like a metronome. Investors were calling lawyers. One of them slammed a palm on the wall. Who even let her in there again? She's just the janitor. She's not just anything anymore. Back in the room, Maeve filled page after page. Cross didn't interrupt, just listened. Occasionally nodded. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't performing. He looked tired, like a man who'd just seen the foundation of his company shift. When she finally stopped, the pad was full, and she looked different. Taller. Calmer. He stood, walked to the door, opened it. Whitney was still there, mouth ready with a prepared defense. But before she could speak, cancel the deal. She blinked. Sir? Cancel the deal and send a statement. Full audit begins today. Internal and external. Bring legal, bring compliance. But the investors, they can sue me. Let them. He turned to Maeve. You're not going back to mopping floors tonight. Maeve raised an eyebrow. So you're firing me? I'm promoting you. To what? We'll figure that out. But it starts with a desk, a badge, and people who'll have to call you ma'am. Maeve didn't smile. Not yet. She looked back at the conference table. The second copy of the contract still sat there, untouched. And next to it, the ruined page, stained with truth. They thought it would blow over by Monday. After all, she was a janitor. No LinkedIn, no PR team, no voice, at least not one they respected. The company could spin it. Clean it up. Frame her as a concerned employee who got lucky. Package the scandal into a press release with just enough jargon to make people yawn and move on. But they were wrong, because Maeve Carter didn't just leave the room with a new badge. She left with leverage. Monday morning, Maeve sat at her new desk, a temporary one near HR where they could supervise the transition. She didn't care. The desk had drawers and a nameplate. Miss Maeve Carter. Not cleaning team. Not janitorial services. Her name. She sat down, logged in, and read the internal emails. The panic was real. Compliance scrambling. Legal departments tracing every copy of every contract from the past year. Whispers about other deals, smaller but suspicious. Patterns. But the worst part? They weren't mad about the fraud. They were mad it had been seen by the wrong person. By noon, she was summoned upstairs, a smaller room. Frosted glass again. Two men in pale blue shirts and tight jaws, HR and Risk. They smiled. Too much. Maeve, if we're all so impressed, you've really stepped up. She said nothing. Of course, these kinds of transitions can be challenging. Still nothing. So we'd like to offer a generous severance package. 6 months' pay. With an NDA, of course, just standard protocol. Maeve didn't blink. You want me to leave? The man on the left coughed. No, we're just thinking ahead. For your comfort, for your privacy. Things can get noisy. Maeve leaned forward. You think I'm noise? He flinched. She took the folder with the NDA. Didn't open it, didn't even look at the amount. Tell Mr. Cross I'll talk to him directly. And she stood, left the folder on the table. On her way out, the man on the right muttered, Don't forget where you came from. She stopped at the door, turned slowly. Oh, I remember exactly where I came from. The question is, do you remember where this company was built? Because it wasn't on your floor. And she walked out. By Tuesday, the internal audit Maeve had kickstarted uncovered 3 more clauses hidden in contracts over the past 2 quarters, all pointing back to one department, strategic partnerships, led by Whitney. By Wednesday, a whistleblower from accounting emailed Maeve directly. She never told them she was an official contact, but word spreads fast when the janitor starts asking questions, and doesn't stop. And through it all, Maeve kept showing up. Same building, new floor. She wore simple clothes, still carried her old janitor badge in her purse like a medal. She didn't need to talk much, her presence said enough. But something had shifted. People looked up when she entered the room now. Some nodded, others avoided eye contact, but all of them knew. She sees everything. On Friday, a group of interns waited for the elevator. One of them, young, nervous, glanced over and whispered, That's the woman who spilled coffee on a $200 million deal. The others turned, stared. Maeve heard. Of course she did. She didn't snap, didn't lecture. She simply turned, smiled, and said, Coffee stains come out. Lies don't. Ding, elevator doors opened. She stepped in, alone. They gave her 5 minutes. That's what the email said. Subject line, staff announcement, Q3 Town Hall. Bullet point number 6, new internal ethics liaison to address team. 5 minutes. What they didn't know was that Maeve Carter had waited 11 years to speak in this room. The auditorium buzzed with the usual corporate static. Polite chatter, recycled air, suits checking watches like they had somewhere more important to be. CEO Leland Cross stepped up first. His voice, as always, was calm, measured, executive. He acknowledged the recent contract irregularities, thanked the internal audit team, spoke of realigning values. The words were clean, safe, corporate Teflon. Then he cleared his throat. Before we move forward, I'd like to introduce someone who's helped us see things more clearly. Someone whose perspective we've been overlooking for far too long. He looked toward stage left. Maeve? A murmur swept through the room. Some people straightened, others frowned. More than a few whispered, Wait, the janitor? What's she doing up there? Maeve walked onto the stage. No podium, no script, just her. In a dark blue blazer that didn't quite fit, and shoes that still pinched at the heels. She adjusted the microphone, and then she looked at them. Rows and rows of people who never looked at her before. Now they couldn't look away. Most of you know me as the woman who spilled coffee on a $200 million deal. Nervous chuckles. What you probably don't know is that before I cleaned your floors, I was a contract compliance officer for 7 years. Then my daughter got sick. Bills piled up, and I took the job that let me clock in quietly and leave without anyone asking questions. For the past 11 years, I've seen things. Not just spilled drinks and messy desks. I've seen who gets listened to and who gets ignored. She scanned the room. I've seen people walk past me like I was a chair. I've watched interns become managers by learning how to talk, not by learning how to see. I've cleaned up shredded drafts with clauses that shouldn't have existed. I've overheard deals being made on speakerphones like I was part of the furniture. And I stayed silent because I needed the job, because I didn't think it would change anything. Pause. The room was quiet now. No typing, no whispering, just breath. But then I spilled that coffee. Smiles flickered, nervous ones. And for once, the mess I made uncovered a bigger one. Now she walked closer to the edge of the stage. So let me be clear. If this company wants to change, it won't be because you added a new value to the employee handbook. It'll be because you stop assuming that people without a title don't have vision. It'll be because someone like me, someone invisible, finally stood up and said, I see you, and I see through you. I'm not here to be your symbol. I'm not interested in being your inspirational story. I'm here because truth doesn't need a suit. Silence again. This time it wasn't awkward. It was heavy, charged. Cross stood but didn't speak. Someone in the front row, a junior analyst maybe, started clapping. Another followed. Then a third, and then the whole room. Not thunderous, not staged, but real. Like the first honest sound in a building made of noise. After the meeting, she didn't go back to her desk. She went to the 14th floor, the one she used to clean at 2 a.m. Now her name was being stenciled on a door. Maeve Carter, Director of Ethical Oversight. No, she didn't have a law degree. No, she wasn't a board member. But now every contract had to pass her desk before it passed go. And what about Whitney? She resigned quietly 2 weeks later. No farewell party, no statement, just gone. Maeve still carried that red napkin in her purse. Not framed, not flattened, just folded. Stained. Real like the truth.